Hi, I'm Dr. Jody Wheeler-Toppen. Thank you for joining me in this look at integrating reading, writing, and science. When I was teaching high school biology, it became clear to me that a lot of my students were being held back by reading. They would say they had read whatever I assigned. I'd even watch them do it, but they didn't seem to retain much. Our science test scores were going up, but then they plateaued, and we couldn't seem to move them. I realized that our science scores had reached a point slightly higher than our school's reading scores. And I realized that we weren't going to get any better science scores as long as our students were being tested on material they had to read. We could teach all the science we wanted, but if they couldn't read and understand the questions, the test wouldn't show it. And it wasn't just about wanting high test scores. For some of my students, it felt like there was an underlying issue. It was almost as if they struggled to make sense of science data in the same way that they struggled to make sense of text. They weren't thinking about science or reading the way I wanted them to think. I finally headed back to school to the University of Georgia to learn as much as I could about helping students with reading and writing, while at the same time doing good science teaching. I've spent the last 15 years working at the intersection of reading, writing, and science, and I'm excited to share with you some of what I've learned.
Let's start by considering this lesson. We want the students to understand the Coriolis effect, to look at how wind and the spinning of the earth help shape ocean currents. The students begin by trying to draw a straight line on a polar projection map while a friend spins it. They see how the turning earth causes the wind to curve. They compare a world map of wind patterns and one of ocean currents to see the relationship. Then they blow air across a pan to see how trash moves in the resulting current. Then the teacher hands out an article on the Coriolis effect, ocean currents, and the Pacific garbage patch. Before students read, the teacher takes a moment to review a reading strategy for dealing with text that is dense with new information. The students can practice this strategy as they read the article. After reading, students consider an event in which a boat carrying rubber duckies wrecks off the coast of Morocco. They use what they've learned about ocean currents to predict where the duckies will travel next and why, defending their claim in writing. Middle and high school students really are curious about the world around them, even if they don't show it as easily as elementary students. They like to figure things out. They start getting the idea of currents, doing the hands-on work, and by the time they come to the article, they've begun to feel interested in the topic. They even have a few questions they'd like to figure out. They are primed to read, and are even willing to try out a new reading skill because the subject has begun to be interesting to them. When it comes time to write, the students are proud of what they have figured out, and they are more willing to put pen to paper to explain it. In this way, science can be the engine for learning analytical reading and academic writing. The example works with ocean currents, but the same structure can work for any science topic. You start with hands-on science, move to reading, and then to writing. It works within a 5E framework for inquiry science based on those 3 middle E's: explore, explain, extend. It matches the 3-step system that reading teachers use to work with text: considerable support before reading, some support during reading, and little after reading. And think about it. Reading comprehension skills, such as questioning text and relating to prior knowledge, make a lot more sense if you really do want to find out the new information that the text is telling you.
This structure is also completely consistent with the next generation science standards and the Common Core, which prioritize figuring out and communicating science over just learning about it. But let's take a minute to look at an alternative style of content area reading comprehension, one that shows up a lot in science classrooms. So here's a reading passage. I'll read it aloud for us, and then we'll answer the questions. Ferdy and Niddle gabbled on the plag wort. Pling, Ferdy twaddled, pling, oppy plee, Niddle peedled, and Vang Roo sot. So, first question, where did Ferdy and Niddle gabble? You probably said on the plag wort. Correct. What did Ferdy twaddle? Pling, pling, appy plee. You probably got that one correct as well. What did Niddle do after he peedled? And you have it correct if you said Vang Ru Sot. Now, let's move on to the last question. It's the critical thinking question. You can see because it has a star next to it. Where else might Ferdy and Niddle gabble? Well, you may or may not have had a good answer for this one. The answer is Froggin'. But it's okay if you didn't get that one. It is, after all, the critical thinking question. But congratulations! You still got 75%. You passed! When we ask students to read the chapter and answer the questions at the end, this is the type of thinking that we get. And students aren't stupid. They know what they're doing. Try asking a kid how they go about doing an assignment like that. I've had numerous students tell me something along the lines of, oh, well, I look in the question for the word I don't know, and then I scan the chapter to find that word in dark print and copy whatever sentence has it. We can do better than that. We want our students to have the literacy skills to draw from their prior experiences, texts, conversations, labs, lecture, media and video, to evaluate those sources and assemble it all into an understanding of the topic that they can use to solve problems in the world.
The videos in the rest of this series will help you understand why your students struggle with literacy and specific strategies that can help them read and write about science. Look for other videos including Knowing Enough to Read, Reading Strategies for Science, Signal Words for Reading, Writing, and Forming Science Knowledge, Integrating Writing and Science, Before and After Writing, Making Science Claims and Supporting Them with Evidence.